So why don't you tell us what the magic behind AI PCs really is?
With an AI PC, you're able to do a lot more. We all do daily tasks that take up a bunch of our time. Through the use of all these applications, we get time back because you're able to distribute workloads so that they run best on the right engine. All sorts of manageability applications, security applications, content creation applications, and you're able to do that by also maybe taking things that were traditionally running in the cloud, and now you've got the capability of running it locally. And we said, we're gonna go enable 300 unique AI features. In a year, we not only met it, we exceeded it.
Hey everyone, TJ here with another episode of T Talks. This is going to be a very interesting one because a lot of you, including myself, had questions about what really is an AI PC and why are they different or how are they different. So today's episode is actually sponsored by Intel, and we're going to be talking about all things AI PC, especially under the hood. In my conversation with Carla, we touch on a lot of aspects of it, and I was only thinking of just the AI compute aspect of it, but it's more than that. It goes into security, it goes into productivity in ways that I've never imagined. I use AI every single day. I live with it. Well, one of the biggest challenges and struggles that I have with it is the fact that it relies on the cloud. And every so often, I have a connection disruption, and it sits there and says, try that again, or your request couldn't be completed. So something along those lines always triggers an issue with my computer usage of AI. AI PCs change that. They're now going to be locally computing and calculating all the requirements that you have for whatever query you put in there. That's a game changer. Imagine that for your productivity. Imagine that for the results you're going to get. And that's exactly what we get into. So Carla talks about the productivity gains, the goals that they set for themselves and far exceeded them at Intel to make these transformative PCs. And then we're also going to touch on security. Security is a big component of it. And given today's advancements of AI and how fast and how quickly things are changing, you can't rely on the cloud to protect you. You need that protection locally. Your threat vectors are going to be AI. You need an AI-based defense, and that has to have the AI compute locally. You can't have something going out and checking in the cloud to say, is this legitimate or is this not? It has to happen locally. So anyone who's interested in AI PCs wants to understand how they work, why they work the way they do, and what are the benefits and gains that you can get, you don't want to miss this episode. We're going to explore the new world of AI PCs, and joining us is the Vice President of Client Software Enabling in the Client Computing Group at Intel, Carla Rodriguez. Carla, welcome to T Talks.
Hi, TJ. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's a complete pleasure, Carla. And Carla, really quickly, listen, you've spent a lot of time in your career with Intel. What is it exactly that you do and are responsible for?
Yes, I've had the pleasure of being at Intel for 18 years. I've spent quite a bit of my career here in different roles, starting in the finance organization and switching over to our operations group. Right now, I've got the pleasure of leading the client software enabling team. And what that means is we work across probably the top 200 ISV software partners, and we work with them to make their software better and have it run best on Intel platforms.
Amazing, amazing, Carla. And Carla, so AI is everywhere now. It's shaping how we work, how we interact. One of the biggest shifts happening behind the scenes, actually, that people are not really fully aware of are AI PCs. Most people don't realize what's changing there. So why don't you tell us what the magic behind AI PCs really is?
Oh, I love this question. So to have a AI PC, you actually have to start with a great PC, right? So most folks are familiar with what a PC includes. It includes your CPU, and usually you have an integrated discrete a GPU, and that's been kind of a lot of the engine in traditional PCs, and that's great for a lot of things. With an AI PC, we've introduced an integrated NPU, which is a neural processing unit. And with adding a third engine, you're able to do a lot more. Why? Because you're able to distribute workloads so that they run best on the right engine. And you're able to do that by also maybe taking things that were traditionally running in the cloud, and now you've got the capability of running it locally. You don't have to be connected. You don't have to incur kind of latency and privacy and other type of things, because now all that compute is sitting right there. And so AI PCs have a lot of magic built in, is what we like to do, but it also comes paired with a broad software ecosystem that is very quickly adapting all that wonderful hardware and the silicon to unleash new experiences for users.
Incredible. So it's not just that little fancy button that has the Copilot icon on a keyboard. There's actually more behind the scenes. There's actually hardware changes. There's innovation that's happening at that level that's actually going to power these PCs and the software that runs on it.
That's exactly right, TJ. There's a huge, broad, and open ecosystem, and Intel's always been a leader in helping bring that ecosystem along to leverage all of that compute, right? So, all sorts of manageability applications, security applications, content creation applications, even applications like this one that you and I are on to be able to have this conversation miles apart. There's a lot of AI built into it. Now, a lot of AI's been there. It's not necessarily new. It's just that you're putting the power, a lot of that AI on your device, sitting at any point in the day, anywhere, whether or not you've got an internet connection, right? You've got those large language models or small language models now being able to sit on your device.
Would it be fair to say this is almost similar when CPUs used to do all the graphics work and we separated the GPU from the actual CPU itself so that the load was now shifted? It allowed us to take advantage of a lot of graphic design locally, a lot of power of that GPU separately to do a lot of design work. And now with the world of AI, the NPU can take on that responsibility essentially.
That's exactly right. So we've added a third engine. We've done so, with very tight engineering specs and requirements. And at the end of the day, it's to make sure you're running the right workload on the right, what we call XPU, right? There's a role to be had by our CPU, right? The engine, the horsepower. There's a role to be had by our GPU, bursty workloads that are needed, and the power is there when you need it. That you don't need it all day long, right? Because it has an impact to your battery life, it's got an impact to your experience. But then there's also a role to play for our NPU, which is running those sustained workloads that are happening in the background that, especially, in a large enterprise environment, as an employee of a large enterprise, you don't know that it's running, right? Your IT management is loading your systems with a bunch of things so that they can track, secure, monitor, do a lot of tasks in the background. And typically, when you don't have that, you may have a suboptimal user experience, right? And so by having these three things, you're right. It's like those days. You've got one more engine to work with.
Amazing. And so, given this change and this transformation that's happening, is now the right time for organizations to switch to AI PCs?
Absolutely. Now is the right time. A bunch of different reasons, especially in large enterprise, right? Large enterprise as well as SMB, government, and education. We spend a lot of time talking to customers, and a lot of the questions is help us understand why I need to step up to an AI PC or step over to an AI PC as they're considering their purchases, as they're considering upgrading their fleets. And there's a couple of things, especially in 2025, that I think are making that decision pretty simple and pretty clear. First of all, there's a huge refresh opportunity with the end of life of Windows 10. There's millions and millions of devices that are fresh for that. We know that, especially from an Intel perspective, a lot of the products that we have in market are double-digit percentage better as far as battery life improvement, performance improvement, Wi-Fi connectivity improvements. So there's all those goodies that we normally bring to the table. But in addition to that, with the explosion of a lot of AI workloads, there's so much more productivity in everyday tasks that you do not want to be left behind. You don't want your workforce to be left behind, and therefore you need to start future-proofing your purchases as all of this software is coming online very quickly, right? The word is out that they're able to leverage all this extra compute that we've brought to the market, and they're moving very, very fast. So applications ranging from, some creativity applications like Canva. They're a great partner of Intel. We had the opportunity to work with them last year, and we co-engineered that some of their workloads now run locally. And what they're able to do is you're able to record a video. Let's say you're in a human resources capability, you're doing training for employees, you're helping onboard them. And typically, if you make a mistake, you've got to stop the video, you got to re-record, or you got to fix it in post-production. a very kind of time-consuming task. And a lot of the average person doesn't do that for a living, right? So you're kind of rusty, you don't know where to go, it takes you a lot of time. Well, with Canvid running a lot of their workloads on the NPU, you're able to just go into the transcript, switch the words that you got wrong. Let's say it was a date or a time or a statement. You just type in the word, and the AI that's built into Canvid goes into the video, re-records your own voice, matches your lip movement to the words that you corrected in like 30 seconds.
Wow.
It's
That's
beautiful, right? So
that's
that's just
amazing.
one example of the kind of productivity experiences that we're putting out there. And actually, Canvid just shared with us that they were able to get their licenses into one of the Nordic countries' school districts because they want all of their kids to be able to have these kind of video recording and training experiences and start building all this AI in, right? So that's just one example of the kind of productivity that employees can enjoy today on those applications, but you got to do it with an AI PC.
We're seeing a lot of this happening and taking place. So I do a lot of video editing production as well, and a lot of cloud tools allow you to just go to that transcript example that you gave. But what I guess a lot of people don't realize is the power of that is because of these AI PCs, or that power between those chipsets that are actually allowing this software to really do that in real time. So
And local,
and
right?
local,
So you don't need an internet connection. You don't need to dial up into the cloud and potentially experience some latency and some potential privacy concerns, especially when you're recording intellectual property. And so you can do all of that I just mentioned on your PC. You
amazing.
can be on an island and do it. So this is the kind of examples that we love sharing because the ecosystem is now full of these and accelerating even more.
Because a lot of large organizations, they have a lot of communication that goes internally, but they don't want to be recording this on a third-party cloud and say, well, this is our confidential data that is for internal audiences only. So now you have that ability given the power of an AI PC. That's incredible. You talked on about productivity, and we touched on one aspect of it. How do AI PCs supercharge productivity for corporate users in other aspects beyond what we just spoke about?
We spend a lot of time talking to our corporate board of advisors. We've got 20 to 30 companies, large enterprise companies, that give us a lot of great insights. They guide and inform a lot of how we do our product planning, our software application enabling, and they're instrumental. So we hear a lot from them on help me on my back end, right? I'm an IT decision maker. I'm the IT department. I've got to purchase PCs, but I'm worried about a lot of things that my users aren't worrying about. Ability to reach them remotely to remediate. When I do reach them remotely to remediate, and I've got somebody sharing their screen, I don't want to inadvertently see something that's private and personal that's compromising an important project, right? Security clearly top of mind. How do I make sure my users are not inadvertently clicking on something that's a phishing attack and then I create a bigger problem? So there were your classic, big and small IT backend issues. The good news is we've been working with a lot of applications like GoTo, right, and Avanti to be able to help them with how they want to have those remote desktop troubleshooting sessions, right? Obscuring some of that private information automatically. The tech isn't having to tell the user, can you please close all the items on your screen so that I don't see them? And then that takes a couple of minutes. This automatically just finds the personally identifiable information, obscures it so that the remote session can start much quicker to get to the problem they need to solve. That's one example. Another example is partners, telemetry and data monitoring partners like Lakeside, who were working on a couple of things to make sure that all the telemetry and all of the information and all the insights that are constantly being monitored and fed back to IT can be more proactive in resolving problems or identifying opportunities as IT is making decisions across the fleet that they manage. Right? So there's a lot of these wonderful examples that we've been working across that software ecosystem throughout. Buffer Zone, they're another great partner of ours. They were actually one of the first partners we've worked with in our first AI PC product that we launched over a year ago. And they said, Carla, we do anti-phishing scanning. I think most folks are familiar with phishing attacks, and they're getting very sophisticated. I think I've fallen for a few myself. I've got to admit, right? It looks very legitimate. You click on it, and then I get the corporate warning, you fell for it. Now I got to go take this corporate training because I wasn't smart enough to detect the phishing attack. So what Buffer Zone is doing, and they launched this feature, I want to say a year ago, right? This is how quickly things are moving. They've already launched more AI features, but a year ago, they are running those anti-phishing scans on the NPU locally, and they're getting much more effective at it. And that means that the user experience isn't getting downgraded because it's a sustained workload. It's constantly scanning, and it was being done on the cloud. So now Buffer Zone, is giving a much better experience for their solution in the anti-phishing scanning. So I can go on and on, TJ, on all of the wonderful kind of large enterprise IT applications that are improving how these fleets are managed, in addition to the applications that are running at the end user level so that the end users can be more productive.
That's incredible. I mean, the examples you've given are not just you can do a little thing here faster, you can do a little thing here. It's not about that. This is about real corporate security, putting organizational confidential data at risk, essentially, which, and you and I know, in my career at Microsoft, I spent 15 years there as well, understand that any one wrong click can put you down a path that could really put the organization at risk substantially. So to protect an organization from that, this is incredible. And I think one of the things that comes to mind is uh, screenshots. A lot of people take screenshots of active things and they send them off, whether it's to in an email or anywhere else. But if something's confidential, now this can also be picked up and say, no, this cannot be taken a screenshot of, and it gets blocked off given the power that's locally there. Very cool. The question I want to go into now, I guess you talked about security a little bit. Like, so how do AI PCs enhance security and IT management? Because I think that's another area as well. We talked on about a few things, but if you can dig a little deeper into that one, that would be really cool.
Like I mentioned, a couple of our partners on the security space. There's more that we are in the works with, that I can't share names at the moment, but you will hopefully see a lot of these announcements coming out throughout kind of the first half of 25. But there are a lot of different vectors of cybersecurity, as we all know. There's anti-phishing, there's the protecting your personal information, there is endpoint detection and remediation. There's all sorts of wonderful types of security. And so we've been working with many of the top security players on a couple of vectors. One is, where can you run the workload, right? Does it make sense to bring it from the cloud down to the client? Because you're increasing the privacy, you're increasing the speed with which you're running those detections, and you're actually expanding the footprint of what you're actually being able to detect, right? So there's a little capability. So there's a lot of co-innovation that happens. That's one aspect. The other aspect is we have bare metal silicon-based security on an Intel platform, right? And that's even additional protection that we call kind of under the OS protection. And so the beauty of being able to work with the ecosystem from an Intel perspective is we're able to give them, the capabilities of like below the OS and over the OS, right? And that combination is a very powerful security message. The other thing that I think is important to note is we find more and more ways to tell the users and tell our customers what they're getting from a security perspective when leveraging an Intel platform. And part of what we do is we work with third-party industry leaders like the MITRE framework, which is known for their mapping of kind of 100 or 200, 300 types of security attacks. And we said, hey, let's put it through the test. And so we used the MITRE framework. We partnered up with some of the big security players, and we were able to say, hey, with an Intel device, an Intel AI PC, we successfully were able to mitigate 150 of the most key attacks that we see. And so there is, the product truth, as we call it, both from a hardware and a software perspective that you get with security. And then you pair that up with testing it in a real world lab with real world threats and you find out how it behaved. And we were very, very proud of the results. And obviously, that's a partnership between third parties like MITRE, who are willing to do the testing for us in a controlled environment, our devices with our OEM partners, as well as several of the security software vendors that were able to partner with us. And actually, that's a public document. We just released that at CES with the launch of our latest Lunar Lake Intel Core Ultra commercial product, Deeper.
When I talk about AI, I look at it and say, there's no reason to be jumping on those kind of changes because, we saw the DeepSeek announcement that came out just the other day. Everyone's all over the place. And I'm like, why? Large corporations aren't switching to these bleeding edge technologies in that space because they're not trusting them. This is the technology they actually need to secure their infrastructure, to secure their environments, to actually take AI in a way that actually applies to their business and securing it rather than jumping out on how quickly a response came out of, and how accurate it was in comparison to a software based query or a prompt that someone puts out there. That's not where the real meat of it all is. It's exactly what you're talking about there. And so with this innovation, with all of this happening, what role does Intel play in shaping the AI PC ecosystem? Because this is new, and everything you're talking about is cutting edge of where it needs to be.
It's been a lot of fun. The last kind of year and a half, it's been a lot of fun being in this particular role at Intel because we're witnessing a tremendous amount of change. Obviously, technology moves fast, and that's one of the big reasons why many of us join the technology sector when we're coming out of college, and you can decide kind of what industry you go to, and you go to technology because it's not boring and you stay active, and we have the privilege of working with some of the smartest engineers in the industry. And so it's been a lot of fun. And you're right, it's changing very quickly. And you gotta have to make some bets early because folks are making bets and they'll lead you down different paths. And we're all about, delivering the most leadership products so that the market can decide, right? Or customers decide. The role that Intel has played is really a role that we've played over the last 50 years of our company's history, right? We helped transition the industry to the next wave of technology. We did it with Centrino. Now everybody just assumes it happened. Well, it took a lot of effort. It took moving an entire industry at a pace that on its own it wouldn't be, right? And so here we are yet again, helping lead that transition so that the AI that seems elusive or happening over there is actually happening here for everyday educators and large enterprise employees and content creators and average folks like you and I having this conversation and bringing it to the masses at scale. And so we started our role in this particular effort by launching an AI PC acceleration program. And we did that back in October of 2023. And it actually feels a long time ago, but it isn't that long. And we openly said, we want to work with a broad and open ecosystem, not a closed ecosystem so that you only get my goodies if you're in this little jail, right? We want to scale and have it be open and have it be broad across a variety of applications. And so we launched this program and we were able to do many, many things. We gave the right tools and frameworks. We worked directly with developers. We handed out AI PC dev kits so that developers could get early access to the silicon and start playing and testing. We did some pilots on an AI PC dev cloud so that remotely they could enjoy the benefits of the latest hardware if we weren't able to get them a dev kit. We worked with a bunch of third parties and we put our engineering teams to have dedicated resources to work with some of the top 200 ISPs. And then we stood on stage in early 2024 and we've had a public challenge and we said, we're going to go enable 300 unique AI features across GPU, CPU, and NPU so that we can start getting that flywheel going. And in a year, after stating that goal, we not only met it, we exceeded it. We landed over 400. We stated that publicly at CES, and we actually disclosed on our running slide all of the ISVs that we work with and the specific applications. that we were able to enable, small, large, medium sizes. And then we help those software vendors get their software to market. We are able to help tell the story. Some of them are large and they don't need our help. Some of them are medium and small and they love our help. And this is the kind of role where we're getting our hands dirty in helping bring the industry along, ranging from trainings, putting hardware out, doing co-engineering with our engineers and our software application engineers, matchmaking with OEM partners, getting demos into the different events so people can really see what the application is doing, so that it isn't this thing that happens over there, right? It's something that's happening here. So you can probably sense the excitement in my voice. It's been a true pleasure being in this space in the last year and a half. We're excited about all of the other things that the ecosystem is now going to bring now that they've been unleashed, right? They got the tools, they got the system capability,